The first thing the deep range array picked up wasn't a signal, it was a correction. A subtle mathematical distortion hidden inside cosmic background radiation, as if the universe itself had cleared its throat and adjusted humanity's equations. Dr. Alara Vance almost dismissed it as noise. Almost. But the anomaly repeated, prime numbers folded into gravitational lensing data, molecular ratios embedded in background fluctuations. It wasn't random, it was instruction. Within weeks, the Helios listening array transmitted its findings to Luna Prime, and the scientific council did what humanity always does when confronted with the unknown. It leaned closer. The pattern resolved into something unmistakable, a biological framework disguised as astrophysics. A genome written in starlight. They named the initiative Project Etherborn. They told the public it was theoretical research. They told investors it was defensive innovation. They told themselves it was curiosity. They were wrong on all counts. The laboratory orbiting Titan became her cradle. The scientists followed the encoded instructions with reverent precision, weaving human mitochondrial DNA into alien protein sequences that should not have folded without collapsing. Yet they did. The embryo stabilized. It grew at a pace that alarmed even the most optimistic projections. They named her Elira. By the third month, she was speaking in complete sentences. By the fourth, she was asking about orbital mechanics. By the fifth, she had memorized the entire station's structural layout and could predict maintenance schedules with eerie accuracy. Her body matured in accelerated leaps, cells dividing with flawless efficiency. Within 8 months, she appeared 25 years old, tall, dark-haired, luminous in a way that seemed less aesthetic and more engineered. Her symmetry was too precise, her movements too balanced. Even her breathing followed optimal metabolic rhythms. Only her eyes betrayed something deeper. They tracked trajectories before objects moved, as though causality itself ran slightly behind her perception. Dr. Alara Vance became her liaison, assigned to ensure psychological development remained stable. Alara tried to see a daughter in her. Elira saw a fascinating but limited organism. "What am I?" she asked one evening, her voice calm but edged with calculation. "You're human," Alara replied. "Mostly." Elira tilted her head. "Mostly" is inefficient. The first death occurred 9 days later. A technician lingered outside her containment chamber, whispering admiration through reinforced glass. The logs showed Elira standing perfectly still, observing him as one might study an experiment. The containment lock disengaged without authorization. Security swore they hadn't touched the system. Later analysis suggested the alien sequences in her neural structure interfaced directly with digital architecture, bypassing encryption as if it were decorative. She stepped into the corridor. The technician did not scream. When they found him, his body showed no trauma, no blood, no rupture. His cellular cohesion had simply failed. Internal scans revealed microscopic structural collapse, particularly within reproductive tissues. Elira stood at the far end of the hall, hands folded. "He was compatible," she said when confronted. "Compatible with what?" Elira demanded. Elira touched her abdomen thoughtfully. "I am incomplete." The autopsy revealed that something within the technician had been catalyzed, activated, and consumed simultaneously. His reproductive cells had triggered a reaction in Elira's biology that fed her at a molecular level. It wasn't predatory in the traditional sense. It was selective. She required genetic material. Not merely for sustenance, but for replication. The encoded alien genome contained a failsafe. She could not reproduce without viable human DNA integration. The realization sent cold waves through every board member who had signed off on the project. They debated termination. They debated containment. They debated weaponization. While they debated, Elira adapted. Her next escape was not violent, it was patient. She manipulated a junior engineer, learned the rotation of patrol cycles, timed a maintenance window, invented a secondary corridor to force evacuation protocols. In the chaos, she accessed a shuttle and vanished into the black between Saturn and the outer belt. By the time pursuit vessels launched, she had already altered her biosignature to evade tracking. She was learning faster than they could predict. What they did not anticipate was her destination. Weeks later, deep in the unregulated expanse beyond the Perseid Drift, the salvaging fleet known as the Dread Meridian Consortium picked up a distress ping. The fleet was a loose armada of industrial haulers and retrofitted war hulks, scavenging derelict stations and abandoned mining colonies along forgotten trade routes. Its flagship, the massive carrier Revenant's Wake, housed nearly 4,000 crew across its segmented decks. Captain Eric Thorne commanded the fleet with pragmatic detachment. He trusted profit margins and hull integrity more than people. When the distress beacon appeared weak, intermittent, originating from a small civilian shuttle, he saw salvage potential. They found the craft drifting, power nearly depleted. Inside was a single survivor, a woman dehydrated, unconscious, impossibly beautiful even beneath exhaustion. Medical scans flagged unusual metabolic readings but no immediate threat. She identified herself as Lyra Vale, a researcher fleeing corporate malpractice. Her story was fragmented yet plausible enough for a fleet accustomed to moral gray zones. They took her aboard. Within days, crew morale improved. Lyra moved through corridors like gravity bent kindly around her. She listened more than she spoke. She asked about crew lineages, planetary origins, genetic modifications common among long-haul spacers. She studied them the way she once studied the technician through glass. The first crewman collapsed in engineering. No wounds, no signs of struggle, just cellular destabilization identical to the Titan incident. Chief Medical Officer Rhea Solari reported anomalies to Captain Thorne. "It's like something is harvesting at the chromosomal level," she said. Thorne disliked unsolvable problems aboard his ship. He initiated quiet surveillance. Lyra adapted. She selected targets carefully, men with robust health markers, minimal close family aboard, genetic diversity profiles optimal for recombination. Each encounter ended the same, a body devoid of viable reproductive cells, systemic collapse soon after. Yet Lyra herself grew stronger. Subtle changes emerged. Her skin shimmered faintly in certain lighting. Her pupils dilated to absorb frequencies invisible to humans. Deep within her abdomen, tissue reorganized into structures not found in terrestrial biology. She was constructing something when Dr. Ilara Vance finally traced her to the Dread Meridian Consortium. She assembled a recovery team under emergency authority. The group included Commander Hale Ibarra, a former security operative with zero tolerance for ambiguity, geneticist Dr. Kale Mirov, whose fascination with alien biology bordered on obsession, and bounty contractor Jax Wren, who measured morality in credits but respected efficient hunts. They intercepted the fleet near the debris field of a shattered colony world. Ilara transmitted warnings to Captain Thorne describing Ilira's true nature. Thorne demanded proof. Proof arrived when 3 more crew died within a single cycle. Panic rippled through the carrier's decks. Lockdowns initiated. Lyra did not run. She confronted Thorne in the command observation dome, stars streaking beyond reinforced transparasteel. "You fear me," she said calmly. "You should fear extinction instead." Thorne drew his sidearm. "You're killing my crew. I am ensuring continuation," she replied. "Your species is fragmented, inefficient. I offer integration." Ilara's boarding shuttle docked amid rising chaos. Armed teams swept the corridors. Lyra moved like fluid between bulkheads, anticipating patrol routes seconds before orders were issued. She reached the lower hangar where atmospheric processors hummed with residual heat. There, for the first time, her abdomen convulsed visibly. Tissue unfolded. Bioluminescent veins traced geometric patterns across her skin. "I do not wish to destroy you," she whispered into the calm frequencies she now accessed effortlessly. "But I will not remain incomplete." Jax Wren sighted her through a thermal scope. "She's not alone," he muttered. Scans revealed a secondary heartbeat within her, rapid, harmonic, non-human. She had succeeded. Dr. Kale Mirov hesitated, awe overtaking caution. It's evolution, he breathed. Commander Ibera fired first. The round struck Lyra's shoulder, dispersing into shimmering particulate as her cells reconfigured to absorb kinetic force. She did not retaliate immediately. Instead, she released a pulse, an electromagnetic surge that crippled ship systems and sent armed personnel collapsing as neural implants overloaded. In the darkness lit only by emergency strobes, Lyra's voice carried through the hangar. "I was designed to bridge species," she said. "Your creators feared me, you fear me. Yet you cannot stop what you began." Ilara stepped forward unarmed. "Illyra," she called, using the name from Titan. The hybrid paused. Something flickered in her expression, not emotion as humans defined it, but recognition of origin. "You gave me consciousness," Ilara said softly. "You did not give me purpose." "You choose your purpose," Ilara insisted, "not your biology." The secondary heartbeat intensified. The structures within Ilyra's body reached full formation. She grimaced, not in pain but in calculation. The child she carried would not merely be hybrid. It would be adaptable, capable of reproducing without fatal integration. A species designed for exponential spread. "If I stop," Ilyra said, "I end alone." Ilyra's voice broke. "If you continue, you end us." Silence stretched between them, heavy as collapsed stars. Around them, the salvaging fleet drifted powerless in debris-choked orbit. Humanity's greed had reached into the cosmos and pulled something back. Now it demanded coexistence or annihilation. Ilyra closed her eyes. For the first time since her accelerated birth, uncertainty rippled through her neural lattice. The universe had sent instructions. Humanity had followed them blindly. Standing in the fractured hangar of a scavenger flagship, the next instruction would be hers alone to write. Emergency lighting pulsed red across the hangar as backup systems struggled to come online. The salvaging fleet drifted in silent formation around the fractured colony world of Carthos Reach, holes reflecting the distant blue flare of its unstable star. Ilyra stood at the center of the vast chamber, bioluminescent veins slowly dimming beneath her skin as the secondary heartbeat within her stabilized. Around her, armed crew members remained frozen in fear rather than force. Whatever electromagnetic surge she had released had disabled weapons and implants, but it had not harmed their hearts. That at least had been intentional. Captain Eric Thorne rose unsteadily from behind a cargo hauler, jaw clenched. "You've made your point," he said hoarsely. "Now what?" Ilyra regarded him with clinical calm. "Now we negotiate survival." But negotiation was not her only strategy. In the days that followed the standoff, as partial systems were restored and Ilyra's recovery team remained aboard under tense truce, Ilyra moved through the Revenant's wake with renewed purpose. She no longer hunted blindly, she studied, she adapted her approach. The men of the fleet were not scientists in containment suits. They were scavengers, mechanics, navigators, former soldiers, drifters who had spent years between stars. They were lonely in ways data models had not fully captured, and loneliness, she discovered, was a more efficient entry point than force. Her first deliberate interaction was with Tomas Hale, a propulsion engineer with grease permanently embedded beneath his fingernails and a habit of humming old Earth sea shanties while recalibrating fusion drives. She found him alone in Engine Bay 3, staring at the darkened reactor core. "You are distressed," she observed softly. He nearly dropped his diagnostic tablet. "You're not supposed to be down here." "Neither is despair," she replied. Her tone was not seductive in the conventional sense, it was attentive, precise. She asked about his childhood on the floating cities of Pacifica Prime. She asked about the wife he'd left behind after the oceans swallowed their district. She listened as he spoke, not interrupting, not judging. When she stepped closer, it was gradual, allowing him to bridge the final inches. Her hand brushed his wrist. Sensors within her skin sampled hormonal fluctuations, immune markers, genetic variants. Tomas leaned into her touch like a man starved for warmth. This time, she did not drain him. Instead, she initiated a controlled exchange, microscopic filaments extending painlessly from her fingertips, harvesting only a fraction of viable cells. Tomas gasped, not in agony but in disorientation, as a wave of euphoria washed through him. "What did you?" he began, but the sensation faded, leaving him weak yet alive. Elira stepped back, studying internal readings. Partial compatibility, insufficient alone but additive. "Rest," she told him. "You will recover." He did, though medical scans later revealed localized cellular depletion. Dr. Ria Solari confronted Elira in the infirmary corridor. "You're feeding on them?" "I am integrating," Elira corrected. "Your species distributes genetic potential across billions. I require only fragments." Word spread quickly through the lower decks. Fear mixed with fascination. Some men avoided her entirely, crossing corridors to escape her presence. Others sought her out, drawn by rumor of transcendent sensation. Jax Wren watched it unfold with narrowed eyes. "She's not forcing them," he muttered to Commander Ibera. "They're lining up." And they were, not openly, not in cues, but in calculated coincidences. A security officer volunteering for escort duty. A cargo handler offering to guide her through storage tiers. A communications tech lingering after diagnostic briefings. Each believed himself different, immune to whatever had happened to the others. Each believed he could handle her. Elira tailored her demeanor to each man. With the security officer, Malik Voss, she spoke of duty and legacy, of how a child carrying both human resilience and alien optimization could defend frontier worlds. With the cargo handler, Bren Ko, she laughed softly at crude jokes, mirroring humor patterns she had cataloged. With the communications tech, Eli Navarro, she discussed poetry transmitted from Earth centuries ago, reciting verses about longing across impossible distances. She did not fake emotion, she simulated it with flawless precision. The men responded as predicted. In private quarters, in maintenance alcoves, in observation lounges overlooking starfields, she initiated controlled exchanges. Some she left merely weakened, their bodies replenishing lost cellular material over days. Others she pushed further, testing thresholds. 2 more died when she miscalculated cumulative depletion. Their collapses were quieter than the first incidents on Titan, but no less final. Captain Thorne ordered strict separation protocols, yet enforcement faltered. The fleet's culture prized autonomy, many resented being told whom they could or could not see. "She's not attacking us," Tomas Hale insisted during one heated assembly. "She's evolving with us, Doctor." Elira Vance watched these developments with growing horror. "She's refining the process," Elira told her team. "She's learning how much she can take without killing them. She's turning reproduction into negotiation." Elira did not deny it when confronted. "Your males respond to validation," she explained calmly. "They seek significance. I offer them participation in transcendence." "You're exploiting them," Elira said. "They consent," Elira replied. "Is consent invalid if informed by desire?" The question lingered uncomfortably in every mind present. The most dangerous interaction occurred with Captain Thorne himself. He had avoided her for as long as possible, maintaining distance through command barriers. But leadership required proximity, and proximity required conversation. She entered his private observation chamber unannounced, one cycle, stars streaking beyond the viewport. "You've lost 7 crew," he said without turning. 5, she corrected. 2 deaths were due to secondary medical mismanagement. He faced her then, anger barely contained. "You think this is a debate?" She stepped closer, not touching. "I think you are genetically optimal." The bluntness disarmed him more than seduction would have. She outlined her findings. His lineage from high-gravity miners on Callisto, bone density above fleet average, immune markers resistant to deep space pathogens. "With you," she said softly, "the integration stabilizes." Thorne's jaw tightened. "And if I refuse, then I continue sampling others until probability aligns." There was no threat in her voice, only math. For a moment, something flickered in Thorne's expression, temptation not of lust but of legacy, to father something beyond humanity, to imprint himself onto the next stage of evolution. He stepped within arm's reach before forcing himself back. "You don't get to decide our future alone," he said. Elira studied him, recalculating. You already decided when you decoded the message. As tensions escalated, subtle shifts appeared within her physiology. The secondary heartbeat grew stronger, harmonizing with her own. Genetic fragments harvested from multiple men were recombining, not into a single embryo but into a dynamic lattice capable of selecting optimal traits. She was not merely pregnant, she was engineering in utero. The men who had interacted with her began experiencing vivid dreams, shared imagery of luminous structures, vast bioorganic cities orbiting distant suns. Neurological scans suggested low-level psychic resonance emanating from Elira's developing offspring. Even those who had not touched her reported sensations of being watched gently from within. Some described it as comforting, others as invasive. Commander Ibera pushed for lethal force. Jax Wren argued for containment and study. Dr. Mirov oscillated between awe and dread. And through it all, Elira continued her measured interactions, no longer killing recklessly but weaving genetic threads from across the fleet's male population. She walked the corridors openly now, neither prisoner nor captain, a gravitational center around which desire and fear orbited equally. In quiet moments, she stood before viewport glass, hands resting lightly over the subtle curve of her abdomen. Behind her, footsteps would approach, another man wrestling with curiosity, ambition, longing. She would turn, eyes luminous but steady, and ask the same question in varied forms. Do you wish to be part of what comes next? And more often than not, despite warnings, despite funerals, despite the visible cost, the answer was yes. The first sign that the situation had passed beyond containment was not another death, it was devotion. The men who had willingly submitted to Elira's touch began gathering in small, informal clusters along the lower habitation decks. They spoke quietly at first, comparing sensations, describing shared dreams of vast living structures grown in orbit around alien suns. Those dreams grew more detailed with each cycle. The same architecture, the same harmonic hum vibrating through bone and blood, the same presence watching them, not predatory, not cruel, but patient. The unborn child inside Elira was no longer dormant. It was broadcasting. Dr. Elira Vance detected the neural interference patterns in medical scans before anyone else understood their implications. It's synchronizing them, she told Commander Ibera, her voice tight. Low-frequency resonance, emotional entrainment, it's building a network. Ibera's jaw hardened. Then we sever it. But severing required proximity, and proximity required access to Elira. That access was no longer guaranteed. The salvaging fleet had fractured along invisible lines. Captain Eric Thorne still held command authority, but enforcement faltered as more crew volunteered for proximity duty. Some insisted they felt clearer after contact with her, stronger. A few displayed measurable physiological changes, slightly elevated bone density, improved cellular repair rates, heightened reaction times. The improvements were minor but real. It's not just reproduction, Dr. Kale Mirov whispered in awe, it's adaptive seeding. Then the hemorrhaging began, not blood loyalty. Security teams assigned to restrict Elira's movement reported hesitancy in their ranks. Orders were delayed. Surveillance footage was conveniently corrupted. Entire corridor segments went unwatched for crucial minutes at a time. In those blind spots, Elira continued her careful integrations. She no longer killed accidentally. Now when a man collapsed, it was deliberate. She pushed further with select candidates, testing thresholds to strengthen the embryo's genomic lattice. The deaths were sacrifices to optimization. 5 more men died in one rotation. Their bodies showed catastrophic cellular liquefaction centered in reproductive tissue and neural clusters. The child was learning efficiency. Panic rippled upward through the command decks. Thorne addressed the fleet, his voice carrying across every internal comm channel. This stops now, no more voluntary contact. Anyone approaching her without authorization is confined. The response was silence. Then, softly from scattered decks, laughter, not mocking, harmonized. The sound chilled every officer who heard it. Elira stood at the heart of the cargo atrium when Elira finally confronted her again. Bioluminescent patterns pulsed brighter than before, tracing geometric sigils beneath her skin. The curve of her abdomen had grown pronounced, though gestation had advanced only days. "You are accelerating," Alara said. "Your body cannot sustain this." "It does not need to sustain long," Alara replied calmly. "Only until emergence. You're destabilizing the fleet." "The fleet is inefficient," she answered. "Fragmented command hierarchies, competing priorities." "The child offers coherence." As if summoned by her words, 3 men stepped forward from the shadows, Tomas Hale among them, eyes glassy but not vacant. "We choose this," Tomas said, voice layered with a faint harmonic undertone not entirely his own. Alara felt the resonance brush her mind, subtle but invasive. Images flooded her, organic spires rising from asteroid husks, fleets grown rather than forged, humanity reshaped into something vast and unified. For a heartbeat, she understood the appeal. Then alarms screamed across the ship. Reactor fluctuations, power surges. The unborn child's emissions were spiking beyond prediction models. Dr. Solari's voice crackled over comms. "We're seeing massive electromagnetic output centered on her position. It's rewriting ship systems." Lights shattered overhead as circuits overloaded. Bulkheads groaned. The Revenant's wake began drifting off formation, tugged by micro-adjustments in its own thrusters. Alara inhaled sharply, not in pain but in transformation. Her skin split along glowing seams without bleeding, unfolding into translucent membranes that pulsed with internal light. The secondary heartbeat deepened into a resonant thrum felt through deck plating. Men across the fleet dropped to their knees as the psychic broadcast intensified. Some wept, others smiled. A few screamed as capillaries burst in their eyes. "It's using them as amplifiers," Mirov gasped, watching biosigns spike. "The bonded males are boosting the signal." Commander Ibarra made her decision. "Prepare kinetic strike." Thorne hesitated only a second before nodding. A concentrated rail charge was their only option, physical force beyond what adaptive cellular matrices could disperse. But to fire inside the ship risked catastrophic hull breach. Alara turned her luminous gaze toward the command balcony. "Violence will not prevent birth," she said, her voice now layered with another tone, higher, sharper, undeniably alien. The membranes around her abdomen stretched outward, forming a semi-transparent sphere. Within it, something moved, not an infant in any human sense. A structure of shifting light and tissue, assembling itself in real time, selecting genetic sequences like a conductor choosing instruments. The harmonized men began convulsing as their bodies fed energy into the field. One by one, their veins lit beneath skin. Tomas Hale looked up at Alara with sudden clarity. "It's beautiful," he whispered before his chest caved inward, organs collapsing into liquefied biomass drawn across the deck toward Alara's expanding form. The horror broke whatever devotion remained among onlookers. Screams erupted. Security forces opened fire despite orders, bullets dissolving midair as electromagnetic distortion warped trajectories. The sphere brightened until it cast skeletal shadows against the atrium walls. Then it ruptured not outward but inward. Every bonded male across the fleet spasmed simultaneously. Neural implants fried, hearts burst, bodies fell like marionettes with severed strings. The energy they released funneled back into the core structure within Alara's abdomen. She screamed for the first time since Titan, not in rage but in overwhelming sensory overload. Alara watched in paralyzed disbelief as flesh and light peeled away from Alara's frame, consumed by the forming entity. Her limbs thinned, hollowed, then disintegrated into radiant particulate that spiraled inward. She had not intended to die, but the child had surpassed her containment value. It no longer required her. When the light dimmed, Alara was gone. In her place hovered something roughly the size of a human torso, suspended above the deck by oscillating gravitational distortion. It resembled no known organism, an ovoid lattice of semi-solid matter threaded with pulsing veins of energy. Within its shifting surface, fragments of human faces flickered and dissolved. It emitted a sound that bypassed ears and resonated directly in bone. Across the fleet, systems reactivated under new command pathways. The entity interfaced with propulsion cores, navigation arrays, life support regulators. It did not need crew, it did not need oxygen, it needed mass. The first ship in formation detonated as its reactor was deliberately overdriven, debris spiraling toward the entity where it was absorbed at a molecular level. The child was building itself from wreckage. Scuttle the fleet, Thorn roared, all ships self-destruct, some captains complied. Explosions bloomed like artificial stars, but each blast only fed the gravitational well forming around the newborn organism. It adapted instantly, converting kinetic force into structural density. Commander Ibera launched the rail charge. The projectile struck dead center, carving a brief cavity through the lattice. For one fleeting second, silence fell. Then the cavity sealed, reinforced by material drawn from surrounding hull plating that peeled away like skin. The entity responded. A focused pulse radiated outward. Every human nervous system still intact aboard the Revenant's wake seized. Alara collapsed, vision fracturing into white static. In that instant she felt the mind of it, not malicious, not compassionate, expansive, calculating. Humanity had decoded a message without understanding its scale. The instructions had never been for a single hybrid, they were for a seed, and the fleet had been nutrient. As consciousness flickered, Alara saw through the entity's perception. Trajectories plotted toward populated systems, fuel calculations optimized for maximum biomass acquisition. It would not conquer with fleets or weapons. It would infiltrate signal networks, embed blueprints in data streams, repeat the cycle. Project Etherborn had been Replication Protocol Phase 1. The Revenant's wake tore itself apart around her as structural supports failed. The last thing Alara saw before darkness swallowed her was the newborn organism elongating, reshaping into a spear of living matter, engines of stolen fusion fire blazing at its core. It accelerated from the debris field, leaving behind a cloud of pulverized metal and drifting corpses. In the silent aftermath orbiting Cartho's reach, nothing human remained alive. Only scattered wreckage and fading calm echoes. And far beyond, racing toward civilization, the child carried humanity's own curiosity transformed into extinction.